I'm sharing my screen. So we started with the basics of Spring Boot, how Spring default dependency works, right? What are all that features Spring Boot providing when we compare with Spring Framework, what advantages we have in terms of project setup or in terms of default configurations, in terms of tool, right? We have discussed all the features and mainly when we use default, it is providing it is providing a lot of default features that we can use throughout application like IOC features, AOP, logging, testing, all that capabilities default it is providing with the Spring Boot default starter. Okay, so that is very clear. And we started with the next dependency, Spring Starter Web dependency. Okay, so new module or you may call new project, Spring Starter Web dependency. So the Spring Starter Web dependency is for web applications and microservices both. In case if you have very less scope for your application, including UI and backend, you don't have that much budget to deploy many teams. So just you have very few classes or very few business logic you have, and you don't want to go with microservices that are really not required for your business. Just simple web application is enough, and for that web application we know we can use Spring MVC. But if you go with Spring MVC, you need to do a lot of configurations. I don't want to do all that stuff. If I go with the Spring Boot, right, Spring Boot Starter Web, I need not to do any dispatcher servlet configuration or Tomcat setup. Everything by default Spring Boot Starter Web will provide. Apart from that, if you want to implement REST based or microservice based applications also, it will support. We can build both web as well as microservice based applications. And one more thing, though it is web or a microservice, once you're done with your application development, right, for deployment generally we build our project using Maven for deployments. Either you do or CI/CD do it, right? CI/CD will generate a jar file or a var file and it will place into your Tomcat, or it will start as a simple Java application. As you know, though it run as a simple Java application also in the form of var or a jar, the internal default Tomcat, whichever is given, the embedded Tomcat will start run, and there your web application will start executed, web or REST, whatever it is. Okay, and always by default it will provide your dispatcher servlet as a default front controller. You need not to do that setup. Okay, by default it will do for you. Okay, let's see how I can implement a simple web application. I'll give you a simple example, simple login page and one list page. We will see how it will work. In traditional way, using servlets approach, right, we used to create a dynamic web project. The project setup is completely different, right? When it is a simple Eclipse based servlet project or MVC based project, Spring MVC, we used to create it as a dynamic web project, right, in servlets or while using any MVC framework. we create it as a dynamic web project in Eclipse, right? If it is a Maven with the okay web dependency we create. Okay, so usually application name we create directories like this app name. Under app name directory, application name inside application we will maintain src, and we used to have web app, right? Web app folder, inside web app web inf, that's it, right? Web inf and lib. This many folders we used to maintain. Under application name we used to maintain source. Under this source usually we used to put java code, and inside this web app under this web inf we used to put web.xml file. And if it is a Spring project, we used to maintain Spring XML file also here. And you have other options also. You can keep Spring XML file in Java resources also. In this above section also we can put. Under library we used to keep all our jars. And here inside web app we can create something index.html, all our required input and output pages, error.html, or your login pages, login JSP, logout JSP. All such we used to maintain in a particular directory structure. This is what we used to teach, right? In Servlets, first we used to teach this is the application name that you need to create a folder. Under that you need to create a src and web app. Inside web app we used to create web info and lib folders. A standard directory structure we used to create, otherwise application will not function. Once we followed this directory structure, we implemented application. Finally we used to export this as a var file and we used to deploy it, right? We used to generate a var file. End of the day, once work is done, we used to generate a var, and that var we used to deploy it into Tomcat or any web server. This is what we used to do. But in Spring Boot, even you need not to follow that directory structure here when you want to make a web application, right? If your choice is servlets, you need to do all this stuff. Servlets or servlet based framework like Spring MVC, Struts, anything. In Spring Boot, if you want to do that, just you need to create in Spring Initializer or in STS, you need to add Spring Boot Web Starter. That's it, or Spring Boot Starter Web. Just you need to add Spring Boot Starter Web dependency via Initializer or STS. So when you add this and generate application, when you add this dependency and generates application, right? When you generate application, it will generate application with src automatically. Src, there it will create default packages, whichever package structure you have given, com.arbu.web, whatever you provide, with one main method class. Please go on mute, okay, if you're not talking. And one resources folder with the default application.properties file. Along with that, under resources, you can find two more packages, something like static, what is that name? And another is templates. statics folder and templates folders also it will generate for you. Okay, let me reconfirm. So we created one SMS web, yeah, one static and one templates folder along with your properties file. Okay, static and templates folders it is providing. This is default structure that STS or your initializer will provide. Okay, so this is the default structure that it will provide. Inside static you can use any, right, images stuff. For web, if you have any statics, right, images, audio files or video or any, mostly, right, we will maintain CSS files, JavaScript files related to front-end framework or any jQuery files. You may keep them into static folder so that maybe it will use cache to maintain them efficiently. Okay, and inside templates you can create all your front end and back end pages, index.html, success.html or JSP, error.jsp. Default JSPs are not allowed, okay, but you can use them. In case if you want to use, you can use them just by adding one more additional dependency. Okay, login any page if you want it in JSP. Okay, so here under templates you can put your front end pages. Static you can use for any static stuff. Static you can use for any static related stuff which is related to your front end, which are not modifiable. Okay, so if you have any data that is not going to change, keep it in static folder which is related to front end, and you can use in your templates. You can refer all this static folder, images, audios, videos, CSS, any JS files. Okay, and finally when you want to deploy this, right, you implemented it and you want to deploy it, just you need to make it as a jar file, jar or var, it's up to you. You can create it as a jar or var, app name dot jar, or you can create it as a var. But in old applications it is mandatory, in servlet applications it is mandatory that you need to make it as a var, but here you have option, you want to make it jar or var, it's up to you. Both are allowed and legal. And finally, to run, you need not to have any Tomcat. Just you can run it on Java. Using simple Java command, we can run it. Java hyphen jar, give your actual jar file name or var name, and it will start your Tomcat, internal embedded Tomcat, and it will start functioning. Okay, let us try, right? Let us try with simple input page and output page. I'm not going to add any business logic, just a simple web we will create and we will see. Okay, we already created one SMS web. Okay, so as part of this application, okay, so when we generated it, it is generated one form file with dependency Spring Boot starter web bus, and we just excluded intentionally Tomcat, and we added, we checked with Jetty and Undertow also. Use any web server. Okay, let me comment them back, and I'll use the default Tomcat. Okay, commented everything. That means which container it will use by default, Tomcat only. The starter webhook default coming up with Tomcat. In case if you want to exclude, you need to use this exclusion. Okay, if you comment this exclusion, that means default Tomcat only it will use. Okay. Issue. Okay, no issue. Now, yeah, let me create one. We can create static folders, right? Inside templates. What if I create one index.html file, index.html. I'm not doing anything. Okay. So just a default Spring Web application main method class, one simple HTML file, properties with the port number. And we understand how to know what are all the available ports, right? Yeah, let me start it as a make it as a Java application or Spring Boot application. Finally, it will start as a Spring Boot only. Okay, run here, run as Java. Application getting started in port number 8085. Let me check it. Localhost 8085. White label. What it is saying is there is no pages. There is no default. It is not even finding it. Which means you have to redirect it. It is inside templates, right? Until unless you redirect it, it is showing white label error page. This is the default error page. This is the default error.html that is redirecting to you. Okay. So we requested for a default just loaded 8085. It is hitting your dispatcher servlet and there is no page for the default. That's why it is returning default error page. You made a request from your UI with your local host and port, and you are submitting this request. So when you submit it, the request going to dispatcher servlet. So dispatcher servlet must be checking is there any configuration done for this mapping or not. Default action means slash. When you requested it, the default action will hit is slash with no action. So though it is default action also, dispatcher servlet will execute. And as there is no page configured, it is returning you error page, default error page, error. This must be JSP or error.html. A built-in error page it is returning to you. In that built-in error page, it will show timestamp and this message. When you see this message, when you see this message during development, right? Don't imagine that it is error from your code. It is because of no action found. It is because of no action found. 404 clearly it is explaining. White label error. This application has no explicit mapping for slash error. So you are seeing this as a fallback, a default page with the status. 404 means it's a casual error. Whatever action you have tried to submit, it is not finding any reference for that. Okay. So if you see at least this page, which means your application is working. and your action may be not available. I don't leave it. Still, I want my index.html page which is there inside templates. How I can get it? Maybe you need to externally map it. Write a controller. You need to redirect a page. Okay. Maybe I'll write a class name default controller at the rate controller. I'll use this controller for redirection purpose. Public string redirect index page. What I will do when there is a request mapping, which is slash, by default method is, by default the method is http method is get only, right? The default method until unless we explicitly set it up. And finally I'll return index. The page name you can keep here. Page name. You can put page name here. You know how it is going to work. Location and extensions will be provided by view resolver. So you may have question, where is the view resolver? Maybe we need to set up that as well. Okay, let's run this. Again, default action I'm hitting. So this default action executed or not executed? I have a doubt. Redirect index. Okay, every time when I do a change, I'm again shutting down and restarting it, right? To avoid that problem, at least in development, you can add one more starter, dev tools. Okay, we'll discuss in details about this dev tools later, but let's add it. It will do auto refresh when you do some changes, right? Auto refresh it will do. Spring Boot to dev tools. I'm just adding one more additional dependency just to avoid this manual restarts. This dev tools will work in a way that when you do changes across your application from any folder, right? It will recognize your change and automatically it will refresh that so that you will see your changes immediately. Okay, application got started again. Now static resource index. Redirect method executed. Redirect method executed, but it is saying there is no static, which means is it expecting this file? Inside static, let me keep it. We'll try all the ways. Why 8080 configure this application? Acha, this properties file we just accidentally kept inside templates. Okay, so it is getting started. Once again, I'll make a request. Okay, it is saying confidently there is no index. Okay, the problem is we are not explicitly telling that go and refer this page which is inside templates. So you need to configure view resolver. View resolver in properties file. You have given a property. Okay, if I try to configure spring dot mvc dot view resolver prefix, it is under templates page. Explicitly, do I need to mention it or not? Templates and spring dot mvc dot view suffix dot html. See, this application is getting restarted automatically. Confidently, it is telling there is no templates folder also. Finally, we got it. So the default page, just we find all this for default page. It is referring from templates folder by default. In case inside templates, if you have any child folder, you need to mention that here, or else give this suffix option so that it will go and get that suffixed value HTML. Yeah. So from here you can start you building your web application. In case if you want to submit a form or one more page you want to redirect, H reference, something registration page, dot slash registration. So this is simple action again. Guys, let me know if you are getting any noise. Okay, borewell is drilling just beside my residence. If you guys not getting that echo, I'll continue. Okay, let me have one more method. Public string redirect registration page. Return. Okay, I want to return something registration or student registration.html page. Okay, something like that I want to create, or student save page. You may redirect it. For which action? For the action slash reg. When there is action slash reg, this page I want to populate. Inside templates only, student hyphen save dot html. So here you can have your form. Here you can have your form, name, email, address, a simple form based. address. Form action slash your required action now here. Student registration and your required method here. Post or get. Finally, you need a submit button. Input type submit value registration. Now for this action you can have a controller. Student controller. There you can have multiple methods. You can use @controller. See, if I ask DevTools during development also it will do continuous restart. Controller @request mapping value student registration method is post. What happened to you? No, controller only. Just we are talking about web application, not REST. Okay. So in case if you want to make a web application, how we do that? Okay. For all web applications we use controller. For all REST based applications we use REST controller. Going forward you will see REST controller. But this example is to construct a web application using controller annotation. Okay. Controller is for web, pure web application. Public string create student. Finally, we'll do both the flavors. Okay, one application with the web, once done with all the modules before microservices. Okay, we'll do complete end-to-end return something success. Okay, so here if you want to read your data, front-end data, you can have HTTP servlet request and response also. HTTP servlet request or I want, you put it. Using this request, you can even read data. In REST, you can't do all this, right? Get parameter, name, email, address. And finally, it will expect one success page from templates. So keep a success page here. Something registration success. Start your application. Excuse me. Yeah. So here I am getting it. No static index. Oh, was it loaded from static folder? Not from the templates. It was loaded from static only. Let's see. Okay, for student registration or registration page I got method not allowed 405. Post is not supported. Why so? Here request method is post. This one also post, right? It is saying not allowed. Okay, but finally I got data. Finally I got data here. When it is a success, success.html has to be redirected, but it should have redirected it. What is the problem? HTTP method not supported exception. Request method post is not supported. This action executing backend, but unable to resolve. Success is not able to return. Right. So we need to check why post method not able to return this. We have the same page in both locations templates. Something missing here. The request mapping post method need to redirect it. Import post method not able to redirect to another page. Why redirect after post is not working? You got a get mapping for result. New model and view. Okay, here they suggested use model and view redirect option or new redirect view. So redirect view name is success. Okay, let's start it. They are suggesting if this doesn't work, we need to redirect to another method. From there, we should redirect a page. This time also getting data, no static resource success. Getting action success. Okay, so the basically problem is here. You need to have one more method. When you do this way or this way, for success, you need to create one more page, public string, something go to success page. If this is your action, you need to keep that same action here, and you need to return basically is actual success page. Let's see how this works. If not, we will ask. Yeah. Finally, when it is hitting go to success, for that go to success, we need to create actual redirect action. From post method directly, it is not allowing to redirect a page. Okay, post will bring some data here. Once you got it, for redirecting to view, keep one more action. Under that action, you can keep actual success redirection. So default method is get, right? So get is allowing redirection, post not allowing redirection here. So from post we are trying to call one more method. This action invokes this method. This method is actually written in the final success page from your static. I don't know why templates are not picking, only using static. We will see. We will explore this tomorrow with the dynamic CRUD operations. Okay. Uh, yeah, we will check that, and we will see one REST endpoint also will create, and we'll continue further modules. Okay, going forward, we can see a lot on this web and REST examples. Okay, any questions so far? Yeah, that is cool. So we will see tomorrow basic CRUD operation, then the rest also I'll show you. One simple example. We are not going to spend much time here, but the rest we'll see it in microservices. Okay, maybe soon we will start data JPA. Okay, that is very, very, very important.